Some winters never leave you. Even when the years soften their edges, even when the cold loosens its grip, there are nights that stay folded inside the bones. Christmas Eve was one of those nights. I remember it the way a scar remembers the blade, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Snow had begun to fall just before dusk, quiet and patient, as if the sky itself were trying not to disturb a tired town. Lanterns flickered along the boardwalks, their light trembling against the wind, and somewhere a church bell rang once, low and hollow, calling people toward warmth that did not belong to everyone. Behind the livery stable, where the ground dipped and the smell of horse and iron lingered, a small fire struggled to stay alive. Its flames licked weakly at pine scraps and broken crate wood, more smoke than heat. Curled beside it was a woman no one claimed. Eliza May Harper sat with her knees drawn to her chest, thin coat pulled tight, boots cracked and wet through. Frost clung to her lashes. Her stomach ached with the dull, hollow pain of being forgotten. She did not cry. Hunger had taught her that tears only made the cold worse. Earlier that day, she had arrived by stagecoach, stiff from the journey, clutching a bundle of letters tied with twine. The paper smelled faintly of ink and hope. In them, a man named Silas Crowell had promised a home, a stove that worked, a name she could wear without apology. She had stepped down from the coach and stood straight, smoothing her dress, waiting for the face she had memorized in her imagination. But the street stayed empty. Minutes passed. Then whispers began, quiet at first, then bold. The driver avoided her eyes. A woman from the mercantile pulled her shawl tighter and stared too long. By noon it was clear. Silas Crowell was not coming. Eliza went to the sheriff, letters trembling in her hands. Amos Wilkes read them with a frown that never reached his eyes. "Can't make a man appear," he said gently, already turning away. The boarding house wanted payment she did not have. The church door closed with a soft final sound when she approached. No one was cruel. That was almost worse. They were simply unwilling. By late afternoon, the town had decided what she was, a mistake that had arrived by mail. So when night fell, she found herself behind the livery, coaxing a fire from scraps, listening to Christmas hymns drift faintly from the church like a memory meant for someone else. Snow thickened. The wind pressed in close, curious. Eliza broke a crust of bread in half and tucked the larger piece back into her pocket for tomorrow. Though tomorrow felt like a story she'd heard once and never believed. She whispered a prayer, not the kind learned in church, but the honest kind that slips out when pride is tired. "Just let me make it through the night," she asked the dark. Across the street, beneath the saloon's yellow lantern, Caleb Rourke stood with his collar turned up. He had come to town to settle feed accounts and planned to leave before the snow worsened. He was a widowed cattle hand, known more for silence than company, a man who kept his grief like a folded letter in his coat. He saw her because he was the sort who noticed what others learned to step around. He watched the way she held herself, not begging, not calling out, just enduring. That more than anything held him still. Voices spilled from the saloon, laughter sharp and careless. Someone said something about mail-order troubles, and a few men chuckled. Caleb's jaw tightened. He turned to go, then stopped. He had lost a wife to winter once, not to the cold itself, but to what the cold made people do when they looked away. He crossed the street without hurry, as if the decision had been made long ago. He returned a few minutes later with a tin cup of coffee and a heel of bread. He set them near the fire and stepped back, giving her space as though it were something sacred. Eliza stared at the cup, steam rising like a promise. Pride flared, then faded. She took it with numb hands and drank. The warmth startled her. She ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it might vanish if she rushed. Caleb crouched and fed the fire without asking, his movements quiet, practiced. They did not speak. Snow whispered down around them, and for a moment the world felt smaller, kinder. But kindness is fragile when watched. From the boardwalk came mutters, the scrape of boots. A woman's voice carried sharp and disapproving. Eliza felt the old shame rise, hot and familiar. She stood, brushing ash from her skirt, preparing to move on before she was pushed. That was when Caleb spoke. "Get up," he said, not unkindly. "You're coming home." The words landed between them, steady and certain. Eliza blinked, fear flickering. She had learned what promises cost. Caleb met her gaze, his voice low. Just somewhere warm, he added. That's all. The street went quiet. Snow seemed to pause. Eliza nodded once, trusting the calm in his tone more than the meaning of the words. They walked together beyond the edge of town, boots crunching in rhythm. No hands touched, yet their steps matched, and that was enough. The ranch house was small, the stove already lit. Caleb set another log on the fire and gestured toward the bed. You take it, he said. I'll be fine. Eliza lay down fully clothed, warmth sinking into her bones. Tears slipped free, silent and surprising. Not from fear, from relief. In the chair by the stove, Caleb watched the flames and listened to her breathing even out. Outside, snow covered the tracks that had brought them there. Morning came pale and gentle. Sunlight spilled across the floor. Caleb made breakfast without ceremony. Eliza sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug, feeling something new take root. Dignity, slow and careful. Nothing was promised, yet everything felt possible. Years later, when I think of that night, I remember this. Sometimes salvation does not arrive with hymns or declarations. Sometimes it comes in a tin cup of coffee, a shared silence, and one person willing to stand against the cold. If you are listening, know this. Home is not a place you earn. It is where shame is laid down, and kindness chooses you, even when the world does not.